Hello and welcome back to the final session in the series of our Workplace Summer School. So far, we had 3 sessions about getting started with space occupancy, about deeper metrics in our space occupancy dashboard, and also in our brand new space efficiency dashboard with our headcount sensors. So far, we've looked at what is happening in office spaces in the past. Now we're turning to what could happen in the future. Using again our example, I'll show the possibilities of our space simulator dashboard, how it lets you model savings, test capacity changes, and benchmark buildings, all before making any real-world decisions. Please remember, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat and we will come back to you afterwards. I want to start explaining how the Space Simulator dashboard is working, and I will jump directly into the dashboard. Here you can see the start page of our dashboard. It's important first that the dashboard still receives data input from the sensors. So from the occupancy and headcount sensors and all the values you saw in the last session. As a repetition, some charts are visible here on the right side of our dashboard. Second, and this is new now, you can add manual input to this dashboard, like, for example, adjusting the rental cost average per square meter per year for your office spaces, or also adjusting the average square meter per space types you have. And you can also add the number of persons who are then registered to your separate buildings. This comes later in the simulation itself. I will come back to it. And then third, it is also possible to adjust some simulation parameters. I want to explain one now and the other during the simulation itself. You can see here the clear desk policy concept. To simulate the impact of occupied spaces by, for example, a laptop or paper or a bag at the table without being physically present, like going in the kitchen, to the toilet, or in a meeting room, we have introduced the passive occupancy concept. And the passive occupancy aggregates the active occupancy, which is the concrete sensor data you already know, to 1, 2, or 4 hours, depending on your use clear desk policy concept you have in your company. Both the active and the passive one will be visible in the simulations itself. And then finally, out of the 3 things, the data input, the manual input, and the simulation parameter, we can run 3 different types of simulations. You can see them here on the top. The saving simulation is answering the question, how much space can I reduce and how much cost can I save as a result? The capacity simulation is answering the question, how many people can be added to a building, floor, or even a zone without the risk of not having enough space available. And benchmarking is answering the question, how is one building's occupancy and vacancy compared to others? So let's start with the first simulation. I want to start with the capacity simulation, and I want to start with the Arnhem building because we took a look already on this in the last sessions. I will choose a clear desk policy of 4 hours now, and I will start the simulation. What you can see here, we can do simulations per building, per floor, and per zone. Per building means the people can freely choose on which floor they want to work. Per floor would mean the people are designated to one of the floors, and per zone is completely on your own choice. So you can define those however you want. In this example, we have a zone not so quiet and a quiet zone, but you can also do like doing zones like the equipment, or maybe also like departments. So this is then maybe the zone for the IT department, and you can also simulate those. We will now focus on per building. I want to briefly explain. I can talk about it really hours, and also in combination with the other dashboards, but I want to give you the most important insights of what is possible here. So we have again our whisker plot. And as you can see, we have a red line on the maximum value, because this is important. This dashboard is using the maximum value of the time period you mentioned here. So at the moment, it's June. I will briefly do the manual input for this building. Let's say at the moment we have 100 people in the Arnhem office. When we have 57 workplaces, our desk sharing ratio is at the moment relatively easy, 57%. And now you can see the highest occupancy in the time frame, so in June, was at 40%. You can see it here in the bar chart. That's important. That's the dark blue one. That's the maximum active occupancy measured by sensors. Now there's an addition, the light blue one. This is the passive occupancy I explained. So when somebody is blocking a table by a bag or by paper, but is not there, that's the passive occupancy, because I chose the clear desk policy of 4 hours. It's like a person is going to a desk, then the person will be somewhere else, and the person comes back within a time frame of 4 hours. So this was the maximum passive occupancy in June, was here 20%. And then 40 plus 20, we have a minimum vacancy at the moment on the highest day in June of 40%, which means, combined with our number of workspaces, that we had 23 workspaces vacant in this time, which would mean with our desk sharing ratio, we can easily add at the moment 30 persons in this building, and everybody will find a place. What we can do here now, for example, we can play around a little bit, because as I told you, we have different simulation parameters. So, for example, the workspaces available slider, it's to exclude extreme high maximums, like, for example, the summer event. We have introduced a possibility to exclude these maximums. So I can do this from 100% to 99% now. Then this is adjusting, you can see it. And this means when 99%, it means that in 1% of the time, there will be not enough space available. So you excluded the extreme maximum values. And in this case, we can easily add 42% to our building. And then what we also have is a vacancy buffer. So if you, for example, say, I want to build an extra buffer in my vacancy calculation to improve the comfort of the end users, you can also do this and say I want to have a buffer of 2% of my workspaces, and then you can see again it's adjusted. So there's a lot of potential to play around with. So really to make a deep dive in your concrete data and to play around what is possible and what is not possible. I want to scroll down a little bit just to show you. There are even more diagrams and charts. I have not the time to cover them all. For example, here, the weekdays, this is possible, of course, to see where the maximum values of the 40% we had at the beginning were. For example, we had it here on a Tuesday. And if you know, for example, you can even go deeper inside and jumping back to our space occupancy dashboard, and for example, also finding out on which Tuesday we had this maximum occupancy to really make evidence-based decisions. If you have any questions, remember, feel free to use the chat box. I will now go back to the start page. I want to only briefly make a short analysis with the Spacewell Barcelona office, just only show you, because here I will put back my sliders, and you can see here in June we had a maximum active occupancy of 92%, and it's not really possible to add extra persons. We already had the feeling when we had our first sessions that you remember in session 2 we had our graphic that the building reaches its capacity from time to time in June, and only if we say we want to exclude the maximum values it is possible to add persons. So this building is really performing well. Our saving simulation is quite similar. I will choose it now and perform it. with the exception that we can do this for workspaces, concentration spaces, or even collaboration spaces. I will stick for now to the workspaces, and we have here the same result as in the capacity simulation, that we have a maximum active occupancy of 40%, the maximum passive occupancy of 20%, and a minimum vacancy of 40%. And now, based on your manual input of your rental cost and your square meters per workspace type, it calculates your concrete number, which how many euros you can save when you want to redesign your space. And again, you can, of course, again play around with the simulation parameters and really make a concrete deep dive in your space. And last but not least, I want to also show you our benchmarking. I will select here no building, because we want to benchmark now all of them. And I will choose a clear desk policy of 1 now, so we get a little bit different results now. Sorry. Sorry, I missed to choose this. Yeah, okay, you need to choose the simulation, of course. And when we now here in our simulation, you can see here now the different buildings: Antwerp, Arnhem, Barcelona, and Stockholm. Is it possible to change the targets here again? So we again have a color coding. You can see the targets here on the bottom, and you can change them if you do want to prefer your own ones and not the default ones we have here at the moment. For each building, you can see the number of spaces, the average occupancy of your time period, the delta to last month, if the average occupancy decreased or increased, the maximum occupancy, the passive occupancy, the vacancy buffer, calculated out of it, the vacancy, with a color coding, and your workspaces which are vacant. You can also benchmark, as you can see here, floors or even the zones you can configure completely on your own. I want to give 2 examples here now, because of course out of this table you can make some interpretations and recommendations. For example, our Arnhem building. Here we have an average occupancy which is low. You can see it is red. And we have a maximum occupancy of 40%, which mean with the targets it's medium. And for example, for this building, this means most of the time there's only a limited amount of people in the office, and now and then a bit more. So there we can really see opportunity to add people or reduce space. And for example, in the other building, for our Barcelona building, here we can see a green average occupancy, which means a high average occupancy, and even a higher maximum occupancy. And this means really that this building, as we saw in the last sessions, has really an optimal usage at the moment. There is no action needed, but it's also not really possible to add more people here at the moment. Okay. That completes now our tour of the space simulator, and with it also the Spacewell Workplace Summer School. Through this example, you've seen today how to model potential savings, test the impact of adding people, and benchmark buildings against one another. As a repetition, what we covered in this summer school is how to transform workplace data by sensors into practical insights in our dashboards, and that all before making then any portfolio decisions. And when you make decisions, you can make them now on evidence. If you're already a customer, a training lets us run these simulations on your own data together and turn your concrete data in concrete next steps for you. We, of course, can train you in more sheets, and more graphics so that you get to know the full potential of all the dashboards, as we did not have the time in those sessions. If you're interested, contact your customer success manager. And if you're not yet working with us but are interested in turning occupancy data now into smarter decisions, reach out to us via marketing@spacewell.com. And of course, you can also contact us with ideas and wishes for further short sessions like the summer school. We are always open for suggestions. My colleague Remon Gebel and me were happy to show you what this could unlock for your organization. Thank you for attending this session and the summer school. We look forward to hearing from you soon.